Hey everybody, this is Patrick Doyle from Ghost Mine. You're listening to Haunted Mario Podcast. Enjoy and stay haunted.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Haunted Mario Podcast. We are on episode 6. Today we'll be talking about the Gray Ghost Paracon. This was hosted at the USS Hornet in Alameda, California. For those that don't know, the USS Hornet is a World War II naval battleship. This battleship was active from World War II up through the Vietnam War and decommissioned, I believe, sometime during the beginning of the Cold War. One awesome thing about the ship is that it is purported to be the most haunted ship in the world. Okay, so the event itself was about a 3-day event. It started on Friday, and then the actual Paracon part of it was Saturday, and then the investigation started Saturday evening and went on into Sunday early morning. And then we got to sleep in the World War II bunks on the actual battleship, and then there was a breakfast at morning call, and then that was basically the end of the Paracon. Now the Friday event, which I believe was a meet and greet, and the VIP ticket holders also got an opportunity to watch a movie at a small theater. Unfortunately, we weren't able to attend that portion of it, and that happened on the first night, which was Friday night. But we were able to attend the actual Paracon event on Saturday and do the investigation overnight, as well as sleep in the World War II bunks. And then we weren't able to do the breakfast in the morning because we had such a long road trip back home, but I assume that it went well. Now I just want to do a quick sort of overview of the actual Paracon event, excluding the investigation portion and the overnight portion. I'll get into it about those a little more in depth in a little bit, but I just want to cover the actual Paracon event itself that occurred before the investigation, all the stuff that happened during the day on Saturday leading up to the actual investigation. So let's get started on that. Okay, so the Paracon itself began, I believe, around 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. That was basically check-in, and at that time we were given our wristbands and a map of the battleship. We were basically allowed to roam certain parts of the battleship, kind of explore around a little bit during the daytime. There were some tour guides and a gift shop. The actual USS Hornet is a museum. It's a naval museum. So there are planes and helicopters and all kinds of things to look at in the museum. The gift shop has a lot of cool stuff that you can buy. And the people that run it, I believe most of them are veterans. They're actual retired servicemen. But the actual ship itself is gigantic. It's very intimidating when you're looking at it from the outside. When you're inside, everything is really big on the, I guess, the main level where they have all of the airplanes and helicopters inside the hangars. Everything below that, pretty much tight quarters. I mean, everything down to the restrooms is really small, so you kind of get an idea of what the servicemen had to put up with living in such tight quarters during their time in service, going to tours in, during World War II and Vietnam War and so on. But The ship itself is actually really fantastic. There's a lot to look at and a lot to learn from it. And if you wanted to talk to one of the veterans about their experiences, that's another avenue there that you have as far as a wealth of knowledge that you can learn from there. As far as the event is concerned, they did have some vendor tables set up in one area of the main hangar, and there was some pretty cool stuff there, clothing, jewelry, all kinds of little trinkets and things that one might want to purchase that pertain to the paranormal or the subject of the paranormal. And then they had the podium set up with the giant American flag for the speakers, and then a bunch of rows of seats where we could spectate. The speakers themselves were really great. They did their own presentations and basically talked about what they do, what got them into the paranormal and their experiences and whatnot. My personal favorite, of course, was Patrick Doyle from Ghost Mine, which is unfortunately a show that was not renewed. It ran for 2 seasons on Sci-Fi, and what I liked about Ghost Mine is that it was very unique in that it allowed the investigators to investigate one singular location for basically the entire 2 seasons. Now, that's something that is not common with current paranormal shows or even paranormal shows in the past. All you see is them investigate one location for like 6 to 8 hours or whatnot, and then once they're done, and then they do their reveal and whatnot and move on. And they may return to the location at some point in time, but chances are that they don't. Ghost Mine was different in that they were allowed to investigate that location for almost a span of 2 years. So that was an incredible show, and sad that it didn't get renewed. However, Mr. Patrick Doyle did let everyone know that there are other projects that he is working on that are coming in the near future. But that basically covers the speakers. Once the speakers were done, we were allowed to basically bring in our belongings, our equipment, and clothes and sleeping bags, and put them in our bunk areas. Now, as I said before, we were allowed to sleep in the actual World War II bunks that are on the battleship. And the awesome part about that is that you get the feel of what these servicemen experienced during those times. Now, whether that was from the actual bunks themselves to investigating in each room, one other cool thing that happened was after we got our bunks all set up, we were called down to the mess hall to have a dinner on the actual battleship. Now, the food itself was decent. It was just very simple, rice and chicken and salad and cookies and whatnot. But the experience itself, or at least what I liked about it, was the experience of being able to sit in the actual mess hall of the battleship. And you got that experience of like soldiers or servicemen in every day would go down to the mess hall and they would eat their chow in the mess hall. Now, for those that don't know, chow is what servicemen call their meals. So in any case, that was a really cool experience. And then once dinner was over, we were called back up to the hangar area, and we were then divided up into the groups that we were going to be in. Now, this basically leads into the paranormal investigation portion of the evening. So again, I just covered the simple basics of the Paracon event. You kind of had to be there to know what happened as far as the speakers, what they spoke of. Each one of them had their own, theories and experiences. So that was all great and fantastic. So I have no complaints there. I actually don't have any complaints about the evening at all, to be quite honest. But we're going to move on into the actual investigation portion of this Paracon event, which is the reason why you all came to the podcast show to hear about. So let's talk about the paranormal investigation portion, and I'll review two very awesome pieces of audio evidence that I have that we captured on the ship in two different locations. So once we were divided into our groups and introduced to our lead investigators for each group, we basically introduced each other to ourselves and within our group, of course, and then we basically went over the rules of the evening. You know, we weren't allowed to roam around wherever we wanted to go. We kind of had to stay in a centralized area, and the way that they had these rotations were, I think there were maybe 5 or 6 groups in total, and each group consisted of about 10 to 12 people, which is, in my opinion, for a larger event like this, is a great size or portion of people per group. That way you get the least amount of contamination coming in all at once while you're trying to investigate. That was one thing that we kept in mind while we were investigating, is that there are other people in other areas of the ship, so their voices could carry, provided that they were speaking loud enough, or if there were sounds made from other groups that, like bangs or knocks or air conditioning or anything like that that might echo through the actual ship. We took all of that into account. So we set up our rules and regulations and basically started the investigation. We were led off to various areas of the battleship. I believe we got about 20 to 30 minutes in each area of actual investigating. The first place that we started at was the brig and the bomb shelter rooms. Now those two rooms at the time didn't appear to have a lot of paranormal activity. We did end up capturing a couple of EVPs that I thought were pretty awesome. One was a Class A for sure, and that one was captured in the brig. At the time of the capture of that Class A EVP in the brig, there were only 4 of us in total inside of the brig. It was myself, my wife, and 2 other investigators. Now, for those that don't know what a brig is, the brig in a battleship is basically a jail. It's where prisoners were held, so essentially it was a jail. Now, inside the brig were these cells. I believe there were 4 cells in total, that at least that we saw, and each cell had 2 bunks inside of it. So what we did was set up 2 recorders. We were just barely able to reach our arms through the grids of the actual doors of the cells, and put the recorders right on top of the pillows of the bunks. Now, I put mine in one cell, and my wife put the other recorder in the cell that was next to mine, or to the one that I chose. And we basically ran a very quick burst EVP session. For those that don't know, a burst EVP session is an EVP session that lasts anywhere from a minute to about 3 minutes in total. It's very short, very brief. You just ask a handful of questions, and then you go back once you're finished recording and you review. Now, generally you do a live review, but we didn't have the opportunity to do a live review. So we did our best while we were doing the EVP session to tag any voices and any sounds coming from outside of the actual brig area, because the rest of our group was up in the bomb shelter area. So while us 4 were alone, they were above us. So if they made noises or were speaking too loud, then we could hear everything that they were saying, and we, as investigators, did our due diligence to tag those noises. So this actually brings us to our very first EVP clip, and it is probably one of the best EVPs that we've ever captured at any investigation ever. This is a Class A, extremely clear EVP of what appears to be a soldier or a prisoner that was once in the brig telling us, well, I'll let you listen to the clip and then I'll tell you exactly what we're hearing. And in my opinion, there is no mistaking what is being heard. So let's cue that clip up and play it for you right now. Alright, here we go. How long were you in the brig? Tag external voices. Okay, so that is the first EVP clip. Now, what you'll hear is me asking, how long were you in the brig? And immediately after I finish my question, you hear a male response or a male voice come through, replying in a multi-word sentence, replying directly to my question. And then you hear a few voices after that. Those are clearer voices, and then you hear me tag those voices. Now, at the time, I did not hear the male voice come through. In fact, like I had said before, in the brig and the bomb shelter room, when we were investigating, I didn't feel like anything paranormal was happening, but apparently my recorder picked up otherwise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replay the clip a few times, but I'm going to play just the isolated portion where you hear the response. Now, I'm going to play it 2 times, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm hearing, and then I'll play it another 2 times. Alright, here we go. Okay, so I basically played it 3 times for you. What you'll hear is a male response or a male voice replying directly to my question. Again, my question was, how long were you in the brig? And what I hear the voice saying very clearly is, I'm told 10 days. So, again, the question is, how long were you in the brig? And the response comes through, I'm told 10 days. This is a remarkable capture as far as EVP goes. Again, this voice was not heard at the time. I did tag the voices that came after that. I wasn't referring to this specific voice, but an incredible capture. And I'm going to go ahead and replay that for you again. So again, listen very closely and you'll hear the male voice say, I'm told 10 days. Here we go. And there you have it. Probably one of the greatest EVP captures, Class A EVP captures that we've ever had on any investigation that we've ever done. I was astounded when I heard this clip the first time while reviewing the audio. To be honest, because of the fact that we weren't really getting any responses at the time that we were investigating in the brig, I really wasn't expecting anything to come through. And this was the first piece of audio that I actually reviewed when we were going through our evidence or all of our data. And I was just astonished at the reply that came through. And there is no mistaking. This is the clearest Class A EVP we've ever caught. And it is definitely saying, I'm told 10 days. So once the investigation portion of the brig and the bomb shelter room were done. Oh, and just one quick thing. We did capture an EVP in the bomb shelter room. I asked the question of if a pilot flew a Mustang, a P-51 Mustang or a Corsair fighter plane, and a male voice came through saying Mustang. Now that is a Class B EVP that came through. It's not that great of quality, so I'm not going to play that for you. But if you're interested in listening to it, I did post it on an evidence montage video that I put together for the USS Hornet, of the things that we captured, that include the EVP that I just played for you, the I'm Told 10 Days, and it includes the Mustang Class B EVP. So you can check that out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. If you don't know where to find that, just go to hauntedmario.com. there's a tab at the top of the page that says YouTube channel. You just click on that, it will go directly to it. You can subscribe for more paranormal content. I post all of our evidence to that for every paranormal investigation that we do. So again, just if you're interested in listening to that specific EVP, you can go to that video, view it, and we did capture some visual evidence that I'll go through in a little bit, just discuss really quickly, and then you can view that for yourself as well. Alright, so let's move forward to the next areas that we investigated. Once we finished in the brig, we went up to the bomb shelter. We did our EVP sessions there and our investigating there, and then we finished and we were called to do the next rotation, but we got to investigate various areas of the battleship throughout the evening. There was the sick bay. The sick bay to me had the most creep factor of any room or any area that we went to on the ship, at least in my opinion. I did a walkthrough of sick bay and looked at the various rooms, and there were some pretty interesting things to find. One of the most interesting rooms to me was what appeared to be like an isolation room or a testing room, and it was basically a small tiny room with a chair inside of it and a window on one end and just one door to go in, and in front of the window on the opposite side of the wall, or what would be the exterior, was a desk with some kind of instrument, medical instrument there to I don't know, run tests on whoever was inside the isolation room. I really got a weird vibe from that specific area. I don't know what it was. It could have been EMF, or it could have been paranormal. I'm not exactly or entirely sure, but it did give off a really creepy, weird vibe, like I was being watched from someone inside the actual isolation chamber. The other area in sickbay that to me gave off that creep factor was the X-ray room. Now, when we went into the X-ray room, by we I meant me and my wife, we went into the X-ray room on our own, and we conducted an EVP session. We set our recorders on top of this open sort of a sign-in or log, and it was dated back to the 1960s, and what was written on there was basically the name of the servicemen, their rank, their title, and what was being x-rayed, and then some explanation on what the results were. But the results were kind of a lot of chicken scratch. Very weird. It was just like a lot of scribbling. You couldn't really read what the results were of the x-rays, but the x-rays would say, oh, the x-ray was done of the chest or the leg or the shoulder or the arm or the head, or and so on. And so we did an EVP session in there, and I thought, as far as that paranormal vibe or paranormal activity vibe that you get from certain areas, I felt like that room probably gave off the most energy or put out the most energy. But unfortunately, we didn't capture anything that we could present as viable evidence. So other than that, we did go to the engine room. In the engine room, there are claims that a serviceman hung himself. At various times in the engine room, it felt like someone was walking in the restricted area, that there was someone walking back and forth. It almost seemed like you could see the silhouette of a man walking back and forth, and it was in, like I said, a restricted area that we were not allowed to go to. It was just in the back of the engine room. But towards the end of that portion of the investigation, we went to this other area of the engine room, and we could hear what sounded like a dog whimpering, and then you could hear a dog panting. It was very weird because there are claims that there was a dog that used, or a service dog that was down there, that they kept down there, that died, and it said that the spirit of the dog roams around in the engine room. And at various times, you might be able to hear it bark or howl or moan or whimper. But we heard whimpering and panting, which I thought was really creepy because the area that it came from was from below the engine room, and below the engine room there was a stairway leading down, and that area is restricted. You cannot go into that area at all. No one in our group was allowed to go in that area, so it was impossible for someone to be in that level because it just didn't make sense. But that was another personal experience. Unfortunately, we didn't have a recorder running at that time, and even then, what we were hearing wasn't registering high enough on, as far as audio would pick up, that we would have recorded it on our recorders anyway. So just another personal experience. And we kind of want to move forward here. I'm skipping around different areas that we investigated, just kind of picking up on the basic ones where we had personal experiences that we didn't capture evidence on. But there are two areas in particular that we did actually capture visual evidence in. So let me just talk about really quick the one more personal experience, and this was more towards the end of the night. This was in the very large room that we called the anchor room. It looked like, I believe it was the back of the ship, or it was the front of the ship. I couldn't tell, but it was a very large room that had these large, gigantic chains that could be connected to what could only be anchors. So we are basically in the anchor room, and we're trying to do EVPs, and then at some point all of us go into the sleeping quarters that are above the anchor room. So everyone goes in there. No one is inside of the anchor room itself. Everyone is in the sleeping quarters. Now, as the investigators are doing their EVP session, and they're running K2 meters, they're actually starting to communicate with some form of spirit or entity, or at least purported to be, because they were getting flashlight communication, and the K2 meter was going off in response to some of their questions. But to me, what drew my attention and another investigator's attention was looking out into the anchor room. We're basically on an upper level, and the anchor room would have been on a lower level. As I looked into the darkness, it looked like the figure of a man wearing white, and I would assume it's a sailor's uniform, a white sailor's uniform, was walking from right to left all the way across the anchor room. Now, I saw it once, and I tried to take pictures of it as fast as I could. Unfortunately, nothing came up. Well, a couple of minutes pass, and I see the figure again, walking the exact same path from right to left. Now, what I attribute that experience to is just a residual haunt, because it walked the exact same path from right to left. The figure looked exactly the same. I couldn't see a face or a hat. It just looked like a white, I don't want to say it was like a white mist, but it was opaque and in the form or shape of a man, but it was moving. It had to have been maybe 5.5 to 6 feet tall, if that, and it was just moving from right to left. So another personal experience. Unfortunately, we didn't capture anything to back that up, so just chalk it up to a personal experience, but a very cool experience nonetheless, and a great one to end the evening on. But rewind that back a little to and another area that I wanted to talk about that we actually did capture evidence for. Now, this was in the ready room. Now, the ready room to me, I think it was like a meeting room that was used for the officers. We were all gathered inside of the room, and just outside the room is this very long hallway that seems to go almost from the front of the ship to the back of the ship, but it's basically a straightaway. So if you look down the hallway, either left or to the right, you can see all the way down. If you shine your flashlight, and this is in pitch black darkness, of course, you shine your flashlight as far back as it'll go. It's just one straight line. And supposedly, this hallway is said to be haunted, and people report seeing shadow figures roaming up and down the hall. So I figured, this would be really awesome to capture. We set up a laser grid right in the front of the ready room, pointing out at the hallway, or the wall of the hallway, and we basically all sat and observed the laser grid to see if anything would move in front of it. Now, I was seated all the way to the back of the room, and I had a camera and turned that on and pointed it at it. Now, unfortunately, the camera that I had pointed at it is just a regular Nikon, digital flash camera. It does have the ability to record video. The thing is that it doesn't record in night vision, nor does it record in full spectrum. So it records in regular camera quality. And even though I had it on night mode, it didn't pick up the laser grid quite as well as it was visible to our own eyes. But anyway, as I was recording, about 4 minutes into the recording, I see a shadowy mist figure move at the top right hand corner of the doorway, and it kind of blocked out some of the lights, and I didn't know what to think about it at first, so I didn't immediately call it out. And then one of the other female investigators calls out and says, "Hey, I think I saw something up there move along the lights up." And I said, "Yeah, up near the top." And it turns out that we both saw the same shadow figure. Well, shortly after seeing that shadow figure, and though I had my camera pointed on it, my camera dies. So the batteries die on it, and I'm scrambling to get new batteries into it so I can start recording again. And when I went to review it the next day, I reviewed the visual footage, and luckily we ended up capturing the shadow figure on camera. Now, again, it's not the greatest quality, but it is a capture of something that we did see with our own eyes. So if you're interested in seeing that, again, I do have that posted in the montage video of the evidence that we captured at the USS Hornet. Again, go to my YouTube channel and you can look that up there, and you can see the footage of that shadow figure. Now, the last piece of visual evidence that I want to talk about was in this room called the 442 room, which was basically a maintenance room. Now, when you walk into the room, there is all kinds of military memorabilia just everywhere, in glass cases and whatnot. There's a separate area that looks kind of like a little mini theater, and these rows of seats and a large flat screen TV hooked up to the wall. Obviously this is more modern, but this, I believe, is just part of the actual museum tour that they set up. But we were in that room and I was recording with full spectrum, and I panned the camera around left to right, and as I'm panning the camera around, I'm looking right at the full spectrum recorder or camcorder screen, and at first I don't see anything that's catching my eye, but as soon as I pan from left to right, I see this white mist figure fly across the screen from left to right. And I call it out because I saw it with my own eyes right on the actual screen itself, but didn't actually see it with my own eyes physically in the dark. And no lights were on at this time, only the light from my full spectrum, which can be seen in the video. Now again, this is something that I captured on video, so if you're interested in seeing this clip, which is probably one of the best pieces of visual evidence that I have, you can go to my YouTube channel and check the video out of the evidence that we captured at the USS Hornet. We did everything we could to debunk it, making sure it wasn't someone's flashlight that turned on, that it wasn't reflection from my IR light going off of the television flat screen, and none of that attributed to what we actually captured through the full spectrum camera. So I do believe that this was an actual spirit mist, or perhaps even ectoplasm. I doubt that it's ectoplasm, but to me it was more of a spirit mist. So if you're interested, take a look at that clip, and let me know in the comments what you think it might have been. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about one last area that we investigated, and this is called the chaplain's room. So we're in the chaplain's room, and we're running an EVP session, and we're asking various questions, and we aren't really getting too much paranormal activity. And so there is an organ in the corner of the room nearest to me, and one of the lead investigators decides to play some of the organ, play a hymn on the organ, and then see if that might stir up some activity. So she plays a hymn, and nothing really happens. So then we decide that we should try singing a hymn as a group, and so everyone kind of starts singing along, and we finish our singing, and nothing immediately happens until an investigator says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And right after that is the investigator says that, activity stirs up, and there's this rumbling from the bench seat, or the seat that's in front of the organ. At least that's what the sound clip sounds like. It's like a rumbling of the seat, and then we all heard a loud, disembodied male voice reply to her saying, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." So I'm going to play this for you now because we did capture this audio. This is probably one of the loudest disembodied voices we've ever heard. But I'm going to play it for you, and then I'll tell you what we believe is being said. There are two things that it might be saying, but we'll get into that once I play the clip. So here's the clip now.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
What the hell?
Who's whispering?
No, that came from over here in the corner.
Yeah, I heard it.
It sounded like someone got off of the chair and said yes.
Okay, so what you'll hear in that clip is the female investigator say, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And then you'll hear a quick rumbling of like a chair, and then you'll hear a loud, raspy, whispered voice, and it says 3 words. What we first believed it said was, "Yes, you have." But another investigator that reviewed the audio, after I posted it with the online video montage of the evidence collective that we have, she reviewed the audio clip and determined that it was not saying "yes, you have," but it was saying "bless you all." Interesting. To me, it makes more sense that it's saying "bless you all" instead of "yes, you have," especially because of the room that we were in, the chaplain's quarters. Interesting, but I'm going to replay that clip for you, and you can discern what you believe it's saying, either "yes, you have," or "bless you all," or maybe some other phrase that we just aren't hearing. But it is a Class A disembodied voice. I'll let you guys decide what you think is being spoken in the EVP. So here's a clip again.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Okay, so there you have it. Another fantastic capture from our investigation at the USS Hornet. Now, again, if you're interested in reviewing these pieces of evidence, I did create a montage video of the evidence that we captured at the USS Hornet. You can find that on my YouTube channel, and the link is right on the website, and it'll take you right to the page. And you can subscribe for more content, again, if you enjoy what you see, and if you are interested in seeing all of the other evidence that we have captured in our past investigations and all the evidence that we'll capture in our future investigations. The Grey Ghost Paracon was definitely a fantastic event. I was very pleased overall with our experience. I don't really have any complaints. Once the investigation was over, investigators were allowed to do extra investigating on their own, as long as they didn't go into the restricted areas. But we didn't participate in that. I felt like we had gotten enough of an experience with the investigation overall. So we went back to the sleeping quarters and basically went to sleep. Very uncomfortable to sleep in those World War II bunks. Didn't really get much sleep anyway, but in all, it was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm very glad that we went, and hopefully we'll get to attend this event next year if it's held at the USS Hornet again. Definitely looking forward to going back to that location and get another chance to investigate and maybe capture some of those shadow figures and white mist figures that we saw but weren't able to capture because we didn't have anything recording. So that pretty much does it for today's podcast. If you're interested in our next investigation, we'll be doing a return to the Graber Olive House. If you haven't heard about that, you can go to the Supernatural Spotlight section of my website at hauntedmario.com. And there is a section dedicated to the Graber Olive House, and you can look up some of the information there. We'll be returning there next month for a paranormal investigation, and we do have some events coming up with Haunted Orange County. You can go to the website and take a look at that for future lectures, tours, and other special events, including a paranormal investigation coming up at the Heritage Square Museum that will be happening in December. So keep a lookout for that. Halloween season is coming up, so if you're interested in some of those events, check out the Haunted Orange County website. And again, thank you very much for listening to my podcast and letting me give you insight into all things paranormal. And just as always, happy hauntings.